Yo, Sleepy Sheepy here. Today we're going to be continuing the trend of using some asymmetrical setup, so we'll be looking at the main hand Pike with a offhand CGS. So this could be really any CGS, but I went ahead and used the Dismounter. I found that these two have great synergy together, and I really like the way that you can use Sword Dance and then swap over the Pike and go for a very quick chase down. So we'll take a look real quick at just how well that works in invasions and duels. Using Sword Dance into the handy tech with Pike is going to make for such a nice pseudo combo, especially if they roll out. If they do mash out of stun after Sword Dance, you'll be in trouble, but I think the tendency is to really roll out of it, so the Pike is just such a nice way to follow that up, continue your aggression, and maintain forward momentum. As for the build, we'll be running this on a Dexterity build. However, I think this would work quite well with Strength since we are using Flaming Strike on the Pike. I did like the Lightning Infusion for the offhand weapon, but Strength build would be totally viable. So we have 50 Dexterity. You can boost that a little bit further if you want to use Millicent's Prosthesis instead of the Erdtree's Favor +2, but I didn't find that to be super necessary, and I liked having just a little bit more HP and stamina. We also have the Shard of Alexander, which is going to be extremely helpful for using the different Ashes of War that we have. Flaming Strike is quite useful, as is Sword Dance, and I did put Ice Spear on the Pike for some invasions and duels, but I definitely would recommend Flaming Strike over Ice Spear if you're going to be running these in the invasion setting, but in the duel setting I think Ice Spear is probably preferable in my opinion. Maybe not in terms of ability, but just I like that playstyle better. Very quickly I'll go over the moveset. So the first thing to know about the Pike is that the R2 is quite bad. It goes almost straight up. You can improve this a little bit by angling your camera almost straight down, but it doesn't really put you in a great spot, so I recommend staying away from the R2. However, the running attack and the running heavy have slightly different timings, so mixing those up when you're going for chase downs can be quite nice. And then the offhand CGS is great if you want to bait somebody in and then hit them with the CGS. It can be a really good way to go, especially because your AR is actually better on your CGS. Now, I would say it's really important to also be using handy tech, so that's going to be swapping to the two-handed moveset periodically to reduce the recovery frames of your attack animation. So if you go for a running heavy and then switch over to the CGS, that's going to be that handy tech that we're looking for. And as I mentioned, the Sword Dance into handy tech is a great way to chase people down, especially with how quickly the just running R1 or neutral R1 comes out for the Pike. So that's kind of how I use this. I definitely had a lot of fun with it. It's not maybe the most optimized setup. You could do something like a HTS rather than the Pike. That would probably be a little bit stronger, but I just was interested in trying something with the massive range of a Pike, and obviously didn't want to just run power stance Pikes for an entire invasion showcase, so this was kind of the setup that I went for. That pretty much covers everything that I wanted to say about the moveset. If you have any questions, definitely let me know, and if you wouldn't mind considering subscribing, I'd definitely appreciate it. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the invasions. Alright, so starting off with this first invasion, it's going to be a 3v1, and we play this quite poorly in the beginning. We're going to be hit with a number of things as we go for our Great Bow Ash of War. We do land a little bit of damage, but we need to back off, and we've actually ended up in a corner. I was kind of under the impression that I could go around the castle in this area, but I definitely wasn't in the right spot, so we do get hit with a large amount of bleed damage, followed up by some madness, and then we just have someone pressuring us with the whip from behind. So all these things together are quite deadly, and we do need to just kind of reorient ourselves, get some of the pressure off of us, and get our health back to full, or at least close to full. So we're gonna go ahead and swap our talismans to just give us a little bit of HP boost when we do drink our flask, and then we want to be in a different area than we're currently in. Being out in the open and being chased down by 3 players is always rough, so moving into Castle Soul is going to be a great way to give ourselves a little bit of time, give ourselves a little bit of space, and potentially isolate an enemy in the process. So we do have some very big PvE. We do need to look out for the damage that the PvE can do to us. That breath that it's spewing right now is super deadly. It does a ton of damage per second if you walk into it, and it does hurt invaders. So being just kind of weary of that is important, and they're doing a good job of cheesing the PvE using the Mohg's Great Spear Ash of War, so they are able to finish that PvE off quite quickly. But at this point we have successfully isolated the blue for just a moment until the blue realizes there's another bit of PvE in the mix. So we do have a second giant dog coming in for the attack on the players. They cheese it a second time, and we take that moment to just swap our talismans, give ourselves a little extra faith, and then use some passive regen. So I definitely like doing that when you have a moment to yourself. And here we can see how useful the Pike is for chase down and finish off the blue with just a little bit of time to ourselves with that blue player. So it was pretty nice to just kind of have that extra aggression coming from the hunter rather than the other two players, and baiting them into an area with PvE where not everybody is going to make the same decision at the same time is quite useful. Now we're going after the host here. I'm not sure why, but in my mind this was the Phantom, and then the host was, you know, not the Phantom. So I was a little bit mixed up, and had I not been mixed up, I think I would have continued to pressure in that moment after the sword dance, and continue to go after the player with bikes. Here we go for a fully charged heavy after we successfully get the sleep pot. This seems to have no effect on their cumulative FP since they're continuing to go for the Moog Spear Ash of War, so that was quite unfortunate. I was hoping to drain some of their FP with the sleep pot, and here they go for a very heads-up play using Moog Spear through the floor. I probably should have seen that coming, but I was really hoping to use the stairs again to just kind of funnel everybody into a smaller space, but we can do the same thing with this doorway here, and that's going to just kind of get everyone into a line. The host is a little bit further behind, which is great, and the Phantom is out of FP, so we're going to go ahead and go for a heavy attack. We're using the two-handed moveset of the CGS to use a little bit of hyper armor, which can be really, really nice, and then we go for sword dance and do manage to take care of the Phantom. So we've swapped over to our Misericord for a second to get a little bit of chip damage. Again, we're going for more sleep pots, hoping to get rid of more of the host's FP. And we're just kind of spacing this out a little bit. We don't need to be in a huge rush, and we know that they have the potential to do a lot of damage in a small space. So here we do get another sleep pot. We do sleep them successfully, and then we just go for a light attack with the Pike because we don't want to miss our attack like we did last time. So we continue to throw sleep pots. Just if they're going to be going for that Ash of War, I think that's a good way to punish it. And again, if we can really get their FP drained so that they don't have that option anymore, we'd be super happy to see that. So here they're kind of obscuring their view, so after the second one we go ahead and come in with the CGS, and here we get that pseudo combo where we go for sword dance, they roll out, and we follow it up with a handy tech Pike attack. So that was just a nice 3v1. It started out quite poorly, but we were able to use just kind of the space of the terrain to avoid getting killed and finish off all of our opponents. So next up we have a group of three, definitely ganking here, and they're going for Stars of Ruin. This Melania looking player is definitely over leveled. I'm not sure if they were hugely over leveled, but they were a bit, and they start going for some great bow attacks. So we need to be patient here, but we do see an opportunity when they go in for their Ash of War. They're a little bit too close to us, and that allows us to grab a backstab and get the iframes that we need to avoid their Ash of War. So definitely if you're close enough for that type of thing, a backstab can be a great way to do it. We do get hit with an Albinauric pot, which means that we're not able to heal, so it makes sense to back off quite a bit here, get out of range of Stars of Ruin, look out for some of the other incantations like the Madness Snipe or the Giant Spell Bow. All these things have quite long range, so we need to be just kind of paying attention. We can't spend too much time in our menu. However, if we are strafing, that will help us avoid damage. So we'd like to get some of the PvE involved, so we're just kind of hanging out by this Giant's feet. We're hoping that maybe the Giant Spell here with the bow will hit the PvE and aggro it, but it does seem to be aggro at this point, so we're kind of happy to have that on our side, although we are going to need to look out for damage from the PvE because this is PvE that can hurt us. Because we know that Albinauric pots are in the mix, we're going to go ahead and use some regen, so just to have that little bit of, you know, restorative power for the HP coming in is pretty nice. That means if we do get pressured and Albinauric potted, you know, we have just a little bit of health coming back. So that can be nice. We do see more Albinauric pots being thrown. We flask and then get hit by one, which, you know, worked out quite well at quick timing. And here we can see this Phantom is abusing the tier glitch. So this is a glitch that's fairly prominent these days where you're able to kind of get the physical damage to, or non-physical damage types are going to heal you. And rather than that being a short buff, it continues on. So what I do is switch over to a pure physical weapon here. So claws are a great option. When I see somebody that's abusing glitches, I have no problem just switching over to something that's extremely strong, and having Endure in the mix is also quite helpful. So we go ahead ahead and dodge Bloody Slash, and we do come in with the running heavy to heavy combo. And we know that we're doing quite well in terms of bleed buildup on this player, and here we are able to finish them off with that combo. So such a strong combo, and it's very good to be aware that when you see that glitch in place, to be using a pure physical damage weapon like the claws in my case were keen infused rather than, you know, lightning infused like my CGS. So good stuff to keep on the top of your mind when you see that happening, and the Phantom at this point had also died, so it's just a one-on-one with the host at this point. And here I think I was maybe a little salty after the glitch, so I'm a bit too aggressive against this Moonveil player. They're able to hit me with the Moonveil. I come in to a bit of a bad trade and really need to back off here. And they go for a heal, which means that I know they're going to be in their frames for healing long enough where they're not going to hit me with Moonveil, so just being a little patient there was, I think, the right call. It can be really tempting to just go for that flask but still be within Moonveil range, so a nice moment there to finish off a difficult trio. So here we have a player that's going for some shield poking, and the Sword Dance Ashabor is actually really strong for guard breaking your opponent, especially if you put on the Hammer Talisman, so I didn't have the time to do that, but I went ahead and guard broke them anyway with Sword Dance, and you can see me soft swap over to the Misericord, and that actually cancels frames in the same way that Handy Tech does, so that's a nice way to make sure that you actually are not stuck in the just kind of recovery animation of your weapon. And here we're able to come in with a running heavy, and that goes through the host and into the Phantom to finish that Phantom off. And then they are going to be using Rivers of Blood, so we're going to go for a parry. It takes a little while, but we do eventually get there. Unfortunately, we do botch the swap the first time around, so we're going to go ahead and switch back to our main hand shield. Super unnecessary at this point, but we do bait another parry, and this time we do get the swap. So just good to practice that on Rivers of Blood players. I realized that at a certain point I hadn't really been going for too many parries in my showcases, so it would be nice to just bring that out. So here is a 2v1, and I was really happy about the way this went down. It wasn't super tricky, but we kind of didn't take too much damage and really were able to pressure both players simultaneously. Switching over to the two-handed CGS was a nice move, and here again we cancel our recovery with the swap over to the Pike, and just the quickness of that allows us to get the last hit in even though we missed with the Sword Dance. So here we go for a number of Ravioli steps. I really enjoyed the Ravioli steps with the Pike. The range on that is just so long, especially because the attack type is like very horizontal, so you're not getting any of that like slightly angled up attack motion that you get with like the heavy attack. So just the Ravioli step is always a great option for a roll catch, so the Pike is kind of no exception. So they do get down to very low health, and we're not really too worried. And just with the speed that the Pike comes out, the ability to heal can be quite low. So if they're still within range of the Pike, it'll almost always come out faster than they have the time to heal, which is really nice and just a great way to continue to pressure. So next up we have a gank squad that is all in matching armor. So we do like to see that. We know what their purpose is and what they're doing, and it's not really ambiguous in any way. So we're going to go ahead and back up a little bit, get them to aggro us, and then once we feel like they're in range, we're going to go for our Flaming Strike Ashabor, and we do manage to catch all three of them simultaneously. They send a barrage of projectiles our way, but we're able to actually hit one player with a Fan Dagger for the finish, and then manage to headshot another player and knock them out of the air. So that worked out quite well, and I was happy that I threw more than one Fan Dagger in that moment. Here we get a Great Bow shot that does not connect. It looked pretty good to me on my side, but that's all right. We continue to just kind of avoid these players we don't want to get blundered, and using the stairs to our advantage can be quite nice. Staying out in the open flat ground is really kind of a bad play in this area in my opinion, just because when you have some kind of like verticality in the mix, it can really just allow you to negotiate these players a little bit more effectively. So we start running up the stairs. This has happened to me quite a few times, not the vacuum slice, but this jumping attack where they don't land on the platform, but the sword swords still reach me, so that's something to be very aware of when you do back up onto that platform, is just the range of your opponent's weapons. Even if their jump isn't going to make it to you, it's possible that their swords might. So here we do go for that handy tech out of sword dance, but it doesn't connect, which is unfortunate. I think because they fell off the stairs, the timing wasn't quite right. We do end up getting hit by one of the colossal swords and just need to back off a little bit, but the pressure is a lot lower here. We're able to just roll in and grab backstab. The power stance greatswords is scary in some cases in a 3v1, but a lot less scary when you're dealing with just one player. So they're quite low on health, and rather than having just the kind of narrow hitbox associated with Pike, we swap over to the Misericord just so we can get very quick sweeping attacks, as the player was kind of moving around me and I didn't want to just kind of deal with the Pike attack. I preferred the Misericord in that scenario, so just kind of personal preference, but that was, I think, the right call based on, you know, how the invasion worked out. So we do get a Phantom to very low health, and we begin the chase down. They are able to heal, but we do go for a Ravioli step. They did dodge that quite well, so kudos to them, but they are not able to just kind of avoid all the Pike attacks, so we can kind of finish them off and then back off a little bit. We go for Flaming Strike, expecting some aggression from the Phantom, but they're playing a little bit unpredictably, which is obviously a good call. And the host here does go for Seppuku, so that leaves us just a short period of time with the Phantom. This time we do land Flaming Strike, and that's able to one-shot them when we get the follow-up to connect. So even though this is not a strength or fire infusion, the Flaming Strike is just super helpful, so I wouldn't shy away from putting it on dexterity builds if you feel like you need something to kind of reduce the pressure on a weapon. And I think for a weapon like the Pike that has such a narrow hitbox, having an option where you get something kind of wide and horizontally sweeping can be really nice. So obviously if you were running this on a strength build, you would be getting better AR, but for just kind of my use cases, it felt like things were working out quite well. So here we do go for some hyper armor attacks with the CGS sword dance, and we get quite a bit of damage on the Phantom, but the blender really starts kicking in. So we're going to go ahead and switch over to the Misericord. We don't manage to get the last bit of chip damage before the Phantom can heal, but we do have Bloodhound Step on our Misericord, and while the iframes have been reduced for Bloodhound Step, the distance you travel is still more significant than a roll, and I find that having that as an offhand option is really important, and has just saved me in a couple situations. So we do see some really bad latency coming out from the Phantom, and they kind of just stand there, and it takes a little while for them to disconnect, but they do eventually go away, and now it's just a one-on-one with the host. So they're using the map quite well. I was definitely just kind of impressed with their overall movement. They tried to bait me over this little, like, area where you could fall off the map, and if I'd been chasing a little bit more closely, it's possible that I would have fallen down there. So kind of a heads up play from the host there, but we are able to successfully chase them down. Next up we have a 3v1, and this always cracks me up when players are set up with the Mimic Veils. So it looks like just a one-on-one, however those candles are not in fact handles. So we do go ahead and get a little bit of time with the Phantom, but then the second Phantom does come out with their shield, and the host does eventually come out with their twin blade. So it was important to not get hit there. I think getting hit with the giant shield would have, stunned us for a long period of time, kept us in that room, and disallowed us from moving throughout the level, which, we really need to do in a situation where you're surprise attacked by 3 people when you thought you were just playing against 1. So I threw a lot of sleep pots in this invasion, and I don't think they were strictly necessary. Throwing more frost pots would probably have been the way to go, but for some reason it just felt like the right thing to do. So you'll see me toss another to somewhat lackluster effect, but that's okay. We'll also be using the Great Bow a lot in this invasion, and I think in an area like this where you have strong PvE and it's, not a lot of space for you to navigate, if you're just kind of staying in this little I don't know, kind of platform at the top of the stairs, or, you know, if you back into these rooms, like it's very small space and very close quarters, so really baiting your opponents forward and trying to get them to progress through the level, I think, can be a very good call in this situation. So we are going to, again, talisman swap so we can get a little bit more HP, and then we'll switch over to the Great Bow and talisman swap again. So putting on Shard of Alexander, we figure, will be potentially helpful if we land some of our hits for the Rain of Arrows Ash of War, and we do end up hitting it, so that was a good talisman swap. We don't manage to get the Phantom there, and then we totally switch our angle as the host and the Phantom have kind of gotten out of range, and we just want to potentially stun our opponent here. Now we have gotten everyone aggressive again, so we're going to back up into the area that has a bit more PvE, throw some more unnecessary sleep pots, and they are backing off again, so we'll switch right back over to the Great Bow. This time we'll go for our Ash of War, and that can be a helpful way to negate some of the damage that the Great Shields can block, just because Rain of Arrows comes up behind those players. So shooting the arrow behind the player is also a good way to go, but Rain of Arrows is just a little bit more easily achieved if they're not too close and aggressive. So they do end up getting hit by the PvE here. We're swapping back and forth between the Pike and our Great Bow. We do land a number of hits with the Great Bow, and then we swap over to the Misericord, just trying to get the chip damage. We realize that it's probably not going to be enough to get one hit, so we two-hand our CGS and do manage to chase down one of the Phantoms. So now it's just a 2v1. They have taken care of some of the PvE, but not all of it. But we're in a much better position to be aggressive here now that we're just dealing with two players. Here we have a nice little jump onto the railing, which gives us the angle we need to catch both of them with a Great Bow shot, and then switch back over to the Pike, start coming in to be a little bit more aggressive. We don't see them, so we can just kind of assume that they're hiding behind the corner. So we finally throw a sleep pot that actually matters. We do manage to sleep the player that was going for the Crozier's Hammer, Ash of War, and we don't manage to actually hit them. So unfortunate, but it did potentially reduce their FP a little bit, so we'll just call it a win. And as they go run around in a circle, able to hit them with the CGS and finish off the last Phantom there. So now it's just a one-on-one with the host. They're using a Great Shield and a Colossal Weapon. So, as I mentioned earlier, I kind of have it on my mind that a good way to guard break the Great Shield is going to be the Sword Dance mixed with the Hammer Talisman, so I'll be setting up for that in just a moment, and then they will be actually switching away from this setup as soon as I kind of switch over to the Hammer Talisman. So, kind of an unfortunate situation where they like avoided the counter that I was going for, so I still go for Sword Dance, but do need to back off since they're going for Storm Assault. And we do, or Stormcaller rather, sorry. We do need to back off a little bit because we don't want to get caught in that. We do actually get caught in it, but it was fortunate that we healed our blood loss buildup because we might have died in that moment, just because those successive attacks really add a lot of blood loss in the process. So again, the theme of the build, throwing unnecessary sleep pots, so we do throw one more, and we start poking, just kind of using the extra range that we have to avoid some of the twin blade attacks. And we're not, you know, overly aggressive here. We do have a shield out in case we want to go for a parry, but here we can see just how fast that Pike comes out. They're within range when they go for a heal, but we're able to bring that Pike attack out just a little bit faster than their heal connects. So we're going to see that actually a lot in this invasion. This one's going to be pretty quick. This Phantom got aggressive at a really bad time where they rolled into Flaming Strike and got hit by both, and then here we're able to just run in with the Pike attack and get them right before they heal, so that was kind of nice to see. Here we do get a sleep pot on the player that's going for the Dragon Halberd Ash of War, so rather good sleep pot in my opinion, just because you're in the same place for that Ash of War for a long time, so and it's quite strong, so I don't really feel too bad about using the sleep pot in that situation, but we did go for a fully charged heavy, and we just didn't have enough time for it, so nothing connected. But we do get one hit. We go for the Ravioli step to try to catch their roll, but it doesn't come out at quite the right time, and here they go for that heal, and we're actually able to punish them and stun them both times with the Pike. So just such a fast weapon and a great way to prevent healing. So moving on, we're going to go to the duel portion of the showcase, and here we have El Presidente going for the mirror match. So this was awesome to see. El Presidente is somebody that I see a lot in fight clubs and just on Twitch, so they swapped their setup over to the same one that I was running, which was a lot of fun. They also just kind of brought the idea of Ice Spear to my attention, so shout out to them for that. I had been running, I'm not sure exactly. It might have just been Flaming Strike in the arena, but I definitely preferred Ice Spear. I thought it was a little bit more fun, a little bit more, you know, I don't know, pleasant for other people to play against. So here we go for one Ice Spear attack. We do free aim it because they're quite far away and the tracking is rather poor. And here they come in with a nice jumping attack, and then using Handy Tech they switch over to the two-handed moveset. They do catch me, and I'm at quite low health at this point, so they come in for a big poke, but we're able to follow that up with a poke of our own. We go for some talisman swaps since we were quite low on health, and we're just trying to be a little bit more cautious. We don't want to get hit by the range of the Pike, and here we come in for a trade, and we both finish each other off for the stalemate. So then we have the salty run back against El Presidente. So after that stalemate, we're hoping for one more, and again we do have the mirror match. So I really liked the mirror matches here. And I didn't start out with the mirror match setup, but as soon as I saw that, I knew I needed to swap my weapon. So El Presidente comes out with a crouch poke, and I don't know how different the timing is between the crouch poke and just a regular neutral R1. Obviously, you can wave dash into the crouch poke, but I also think the running heavy comes out the running light comes out quite fast. So I didn't use too many crouch attacks, but it is cool to see how a different player uses the same setup. Again, they're swapping quite well over to the two-handed movesets, using that Handy Tech to reduce the recovery animation of their attacks, and I think that's a great way to play this weapon. The longer I played with it, the more I was swapping between one-handed and two-handed movesets. There we do get a bit of a trade because hyper armor is a little bit broken in this game, and so we're able to land our running heavy. There we get a nice ravioli step, and we can see the extra range coming in quite clutch, and they are doing a good job of maintaining pressure even though they're on pretty low health. They are running a frost buildup, and I think that was a little bit to their detriment just because they didn't end up getting the frost proc even though they were quite close, so I was able to come out with a victory there. So very fun fights against El Presidente. Now moving on, we do have a player that's running a Colossal Sword, and we're going to need to be very cautious of this because they are running it with cold, so we're going to be able to interrupt them with a jumping heavy. The hitbox for that is fairly small, so you really have to be kind of precise with how you aim that, but we are doing a good job of just kind of maintaining our kind of cool-headedness and reaction rolling most of their attacks. So they do come in for another attack, we delay our roll, and we do get frostbitten, but we don't take any damage, and then here we go for a very nice free aim and get that to connect and come out with a victory against that player. So that's why I like Ice Spear so much, is your ability to free aim it, and the massive amount of damage you can do is just a lot of fun. So next up we have a player that's running a int build, and we're going to want to avoid the phalanx. We're trying to get those phalanxes to fly out without taking any damage. They go for spinning slash and then a parry. Fortunately we did not mash, so we avoided that parry, and then we do avoid a carrion piercer as well as another spinning slash. So we try to punish that with Ice Spear. We do not actually get it to connect. However, I think the timing looked pretty good on my screen. We really need to be cognizant of the spinning slash here. We're trying to bait them into the sleep kind of cloud that we created. We're actually trying to throw a frost pot, but the just kind of soft swap menu was not where I wanted it to be, so we do eventually switch back over to the frost pot, and now again we need to space very carefully. We do get that frost pot to connect, but it ends up being a trade, and then we're able to knock our opponent out of spinning slash and then follow it up with sword dance for the victory. So definitely a lot of damage could have come our way, and fortunately we're able to avoid it. Now we do have a player running a Colossal Sword, so again we're going to be trying to focus on our reaction rolls. They are using blood loss, so we're also going to be keeping an eye out for that. I did switch my talismans at the beginning of this duel just so I would take less damage. We do get Frostpot to connect, or Ice Spear to connect, and then we avoid their Storm Stomp. So really we've done a great job of avoiding pretty much all damage here, especially with a setup that's pretty strong. They do switch over to a Lance, and again we're just reaction rolling everything. So I think I just drank a cup of coffee and like it's a little bit more focused than normal or something during this one, and I was very happy to see that. So they do pull out Poisonous Mist as well as a shield and a number of weapon swaps, just kind of keeping us on our toes, and this time they've got Halberd out, so we are able to kind of get a poke and then a follow-up, 2 attacks. They don't manage to get the parry, and then we ravioli step for the finish. So kind of a very intense flawless, and I was very happy to just kind of you know, roll when I needed to in those moments. Next up we have a player that's running CGS and a main hand Pike, so again a mirror match. They didn't start out that way, but it was really fun to see them do that swap. I wasn't really ready for their next attack, so they did catch me off guard with the CGS, but we were able to pretty successfully get some damage in there. We did go for the free aim with Ice Spear. We didn't get it to connect, but I think it was definitely a good try and kind of worth the effort in that space. A number of trades happened, but we're able to actually come out with the CGS attacks before they're able to come out with theirs, and then after those 2 stuns, we go for Sword Dance and get the finish. Next up, we'll be playing against Melania, and they go for a running attack quite early. We're able to punish their position with an offhand CGS attack and come in for the running heavy with the Pike. We're doing a good job of jumping around their attacks and just kind of avoiding needing to roll and maintaining a little bit of unpredictableness. We go in for just a regular light attack with the Pike, and we don't get anything to connect, but they go for their Hand of Melania Ash of War, and we're able to punish that with Ice Spear. So a good counter and a good way to just kind of maintain distance from a very powerful Ash of War. Next up, we do have a player that I played a number of times while invading. I think they were just like either taunt or tongued while G9 was invading or something. So I was a little bit familiar with their playstyle. They're quite strong with the Shamshir, so I was happy to just kind of give this a try, this very off-meta setup in the arena against them with this. So we are going to be switching over to the two-handed moveset on the CGS. That's going to be quite strong, and just periodically switching over to the Pike for a little bit of extra range, kind of keeping them on their toes. The quickness of the Pike, and especially with handy tech, is going to allow us to really, you know, keep people surprised and really limit the amount of time they have to react. Here we go for a free-aimed Ice Spear, and we do get that to connect as well, which was awesome. And then here they go for a trade with a swap to the Halberd, and we're actually able to get the finish. So a little bit of HP left, but it was just enough. So I did at one time mess around with my armor a little bit, so you'll see some slight armor changes. I think I was just messing around with some players I knew, but either way, bad fashion aside, we've got a player that's running, again, a very long halberd, the Commander's Standard. So we go ahead and go for a Pike, look out for their jumping attack. They do have an off dagger, which can do a lot of damage if we're not careful. And here, as we kind of spin around each other, they're doing a good job of getting in some dagger hits. We go for a Ravioli step, and it's not quite timed appropriately. The thing about when we're circling around each other is that the CGS is going to do a lot more damage than their off dagger will, so having that as our offhand weapon can be quite nice, and we are able to get the finish with Flaming Strike. So again, we're running the funny armor, and we're going to be playing against a mage here. So they go for a number of casts early on. We want to punish it at a distance with a Frostpot, and once their just kind of AoE is not a big issue, we can go ahead and start aggressing a little bit, and having the Pike is really nice, especially for players that might be light rolling. Here we see them use Endure, so we're sure to just kind of back away immediately. Whenever somebody does that, it's usually because they have something up their sleeve, and that turned out to be true as they went for the spinning weapon Ash of War, which just does so much damage and does so many poise breaks and really can catch you just over and over again. So it's great we got to avoid that. We come in for Ravioli Step. We do get it to connect as an anti-air, which was kind of surprising to me, but worked out nicely. And here they come in, Bloodhound stepping around me, but they don't get their HTS to connect, and we get a slash with the CGS for the victory. Now this player is running just a number of incantations. It's always a little bit scary to see somebody that's only running seals. We're able to avoid taking damage a number of different ways as they go for many different incantations, but we're trying to maintain aggression with the Pike. We definitely need to worry about the Catch Flame, just because how quickly it comes out. You can really get stunned for a number of hits, and you really need to just kind of roll out immediately. But the Pike is doing work just by being so long ranged, and we're doing a good job of just kind of avoiding the number of different incantations they have. So they go for that one that puts fire on the floor, but we're able to actually jump that and get the final blow for the victory. Now, as a last clip, this is just kind of a treat. They're very low health, and I'm not sure if they forgot what Ash of War they had on their weapon, but they end up seppukuing themselves for the finish. So if you made it this far, I definitely appreciate all your support. I hope you have a good one, and yeah, take care.